thank you very much to join us on stage. To start off, we will have Kirsten running around with a microphone to catch your questions. And before you ask a question, wait until the microphone is there, so your voice will be on the video on YouTube. It's very important that we can record that. To start off, I'll just go with the first question. And I'm part of AVFami. That's a project group within the AVF. Actually, Peter is also part of AVFami. And you have seen part of our work when you come in. You have seen the 5 banner posters where we are researching a little bit how we can combine all these different industries: insects, mushrooms, fish culture, plant production. And we believe in AVFami that we can actually build skyscraper vertical farms with this idea of combining. And that's my first question to actually every panelist. Is it possible, from your standpoint, is it possible to build the skyscraper vertical farms? The third.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I start?
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I was looking through your pamphlet there, and also on the site you've got some nice distinctions about whether it's a retrofit or if it's a new construction and so forth. We've done a retrofit that we consider to be the first step towards making a vertical farm skyscraper. I thought there was a really good suggestion earlier on, and that is that if you're a mushroom producer and you want to work in The Hague in the same building as us, come and talk to me. Because this building's empty. We're trying to fill up the floors of it just now with different urban farming and vertical farming initiatives. So it's not just a theory, this is happening.
Right, thanks. So it is.
I think it also has to happen as well, right? So you can grow the same amount of insect protein in 1 square meter as you can in 100 square meters of 2D plane. So if you stack that up, the possibilities with the skyscraper, especially for insect farming, are almost endless. Imagine the turnover in terms of protein produced per square meter in a skyscraper system. And I think it also presents an opportunity talking about new builds versus retrofitting, right? So insects themselves are already pretty efficient vertical farmers. So if you look at ant colonies, there's ants that can grow their own mushroom farms. And they also happen to self-regulate their entire mound just using a complex system of tunnels and tubes. So they can essentially air condition their own vertical farms. So if we can take some tips from our insect masters, then it's a distinct possibility.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we look at the lesser mealworm we are breeding right now, we actually, if you feel below the crates, they produce a lot of heat. So we actually have to ventilate a lot. So I would see definitely you produce a lot of heat and use it on the floor upstairs, basically, to grow the crops. And yeah, that should work. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Marjolein, you're from ReGen Villages?
Yes, so ReGen Villages. We believe that everything is possible if it's not defined by physics. So with regards to your concept, it's just a matter of getting people like us sitting here together, great minds together, in order to make this concept happen. And everything is just possible as long as it's not defined by physics.
Yeah, Kasper, you were how do you say, not completely convinced that it will be difficult actually to implement mushrooms in vertical farming, but you also said was very interesting that if you use the existing industry, it can be done. Do you see it?
There will have to be changes to be made, definitely. Because the industry is not really ready for this. This is something totally different, but there already is quite a lot of knowledge which can be reused. But
would you recommend a mushroom grower to go to Den Haag and fill up a floor for mushroom farming?
You need someone with vision and with guts. And I'll have to think about it. There's plenty of people like that, but I wouldn't just say who to talk to. But what do you mean by skyscraper? Like how tall would that really be?
Well, yeah, you have not read the book of Dixon Despommier.
No.
I brought it with me to Amsterdam. I'll give it to you. But okay. Basically, and that's actually what attracted many of us to vertical farming is first the ecosystem part, but then the fact that it's so big and beautiful. If you type in vertical farm on Google, you see all these amazing, beautiful skyscrapers, a bit futuristic. But I think, and that's really why I'm in for it, on the long term, I want to build one of these. And I think many other people want to build similar ones. So that's why skyscraper.
Excellent.
Is there anybody else who wants to build a big skyscraper, like 20 stories high at least? Just raise your hand. Yeah, I see some. Yeah. See, we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen. So if I think you all have some questions. So just raise your hand, and Kirsten is gonna go with. We're gonna come to you with the mic. Okay. We have some. First one in the house.
To Kasper, why are you not growing your mushrooms medium-less? I mean, it would be easy to grow them in some kind of form or so and just spray the nutrients in there, and you would not have a lot of medium to recycle or to dispose. So it should be easy.
Medium less?
Yes, just like have some kind of form where the mycelium grows into it, and you're just constantly harvesting your mushrooms without changing the mycelium. And just spray some nutrients inside.
Is that a mushroom aquaponics type of thing? Like a dripping?
Aeroponics maybe, or something like this. Yeah, why not?
That's interesting. I've never heard of it, but perhaps it could be done, yeah. Maybe. I mean, liquid culture is possible, and you could grow mushrooms from there, so I guess
yeah, why not?
You could also do it with forms like that. But I don't think it's ever been done on a large scale. That's food for thought, though.
Fun ideas. Next one. All right. By the way, mushrooms also work in a different way, and that's also when they need to. They get their CO2 not from the air. They have to like eat it from the plants capture it, put it into sugars. So they have to eat it. So medium-less is more difficult than with plants, and it's. So that's why Kasper is also, what? And I was also thinking, very difficult. So, next question.
Yes, at Harwood Aero Farms. I was recently at a meeting attended by a fair number of food nutrition people, and they questioned the protein and mineral availability of insect-based nutrition, saying that we don't necessarily have the enzymes to take advantage of all of that, or that those minerals would not necessarily be absorbed. So I just wondered if your numbers have been modified accordingly, and what you might be able to share that adds to that.
There's more and more research being done on insect nutrition. I mean, there's labs in Mexico. There's one in Wageningen run by Marcel Dick. But I mean, in terms of bioavailability of the protein, so insects have got a chitin cell wall, right? Well, exoskeleton, sorry. And studies seem to show that it's kind of just as digestible as any other protein that you can take. So, I mean, a bit's left behind, but it acts more like a fiber, a bit like the cellulose in plant-based diets. But in terms of sheer, I mean, insects aren't dissimilar to shrimp or lobster and that sort of thing. So in terms of bioavailability of nutrients, I mean, it's pretty similar to that you'd eat sort of at a shellfish restaurant or something like that.
Yeah, I guess of course in Europe and North America we sort of forgot how to eat insects. So it is true that I think if you start eating insects and eat them every day from that day onwards, it might be a bit too much. So maybe we have to get used to it as well, like again. But in terms of digestibility, it's around 90%. So I don't expect any big issues there. But it's something we might have to get used to again. Yeah, I guess so.
All right, thank you. Before we go to the next one, or no, just you're there already. Just go.
I was just wondering regarding the urban legislation, because urban space is already incredibly crowded by many other type of activities, and farming, urban farming, is not very well known and legislated for the moment. So I was just wondering how difficult, and especially for the urban farm example, how difficult is it to get the permit? How difficult it is to to get started without having support from the gemeente in this case, or in general? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question. First, I'd start off by saying, in terms of the crowding, depending on the area you're looking at, I mean, if you take The Hague as an example, you've got about 25% vacancy of office space there. So there's a lot of potential vacant space to be filled up and used. In terms of the legislative process for getting there, we were lucky that we had the municipality on our side. So it meant that we could combine the building, construction, planning process alongside the environmental planning process, because they don't normally talk to each other. We all sat at the table together, and the whole process took around about 7 months. We budgeted for 6 weeks. So it takes a bit of time. Now that they know what that process is, the next farm that we build in that area, we've already got a short list of all the questions we have to answer. We've already got the metrics that we have to show them to make a convincing case, and we'd be able to cut that time in half. But it's time consuming, because if we go to another municipality or another state, then we have to apply new thinking and new metrics to that specific area. I think the most forward thinking that I've seen or we're experiencing so far is in certain boroughs of New York, where you actually have a zoning number for a rooftop greenhouse, and that's what we want to see more of.
Yeah, thank you so much for also that explanation. I think we with ReGen Villages experience the same thing. So we are now focusing, for example, in Almere, and we work closely with the municipal, because it's very crucial in order for us to go faster, to work closely with the municipal in order to get the permits faster. But there was certainly a willingness of them to push, but at the same time they're backed down by, okay, these are the regulations, it costs 6 weeks, but we're just asking them, why not do it in 1 week? What is taking 5 weeks longer? So it's just a matter, I think, of us as being urban farmers to make sure that we are helping the municipals to work closely together to make this concept happen, because basically the world doesn't have a week longer, because we need these solutions right here, right now.
The most important lesson I learned is come with a really good story for poop. That's what most municipalities are going to question about, is smell and affluent. So.
Right.
My name is Tony Freitas. I'm with the University of Edinburgh, and I'm looking at carbon management. And I was interested from people on the panel, but also an invitation to anyone in the room, if anyone's looking at low carbon aspects of these different types of projects. So because there's a lot of energy intensiveness and the carbon emissions that come from that, if there's considerations or thoughts that you're putting into projects that relate to that.
Yeah, if you look at the new facility we're building, well, I mentioned it before, but the type of mealworm we're producing actually produces a lot of heat. So we basically can reuse that heat. We're gonna have solar panels on the roof to get the energy for the machines running. So in terms of CO2 emissions, there's not really anything, but it would be a big difference if you would breed crickets, for example. I mean, they need a heat, depending on the type of cricket, of 28, 30 degrees, and you sort of need to generate that heat as well. So for our facility now, I don't think it's an issue. I think we're sort of neutral. I can give you any guarantee on that, but it's going to be low. But maybe, yeah, it's a good question. But for our facility, I can say it's quite neutral, yeah.
I guess that's why you need the different activities to come together, because the one's waste product is the raw material of the other. I know from mushrooms that they produce a lot of heat, a lot of CO2, and that's what crickets, well, the heat at least they need. And the CO2 is what the plants need, so that's the idea behind the closed loop. So we're actually reducing the carbon emissions that way.
Yeah. Everybody may have seen at the entrance the big banners. We've tried to put out or show the inputs and outputs of every industry, and you can go and look and try to combine the different industries and see what is the output of the one industry can be the input of the other. Just see and make some puzzle and try it out.
I also want to add to that for example, in ReGen Villages, we have created this motherboard of regenerative systems. So like what you were saying as well, it's all about, I think, being very smart and closing loops. So making sure that each system that you integrate, that output is going to be the input of another system, and minimize the loss in the transferring through these systems.
So an example of it is, so there's a lot of collaboration that can be done. So I went to a tomato nursery last Wednesday, which grows 1 in 50 of UK homegrown tomatoes, and they're next to a sugar factory. So They get all of the excess heated water from the sugar factory, which is 80 degrees C, which heats the greenhouses, which then goes back to the sugar factory to then go back into the sugar factory. So no water is wasted, no heat is wasted. And all the CO2 is pumped directly into the greenhouses, which then nourishes the tomatoes. So they basically work with an existing industry to completely reduce waste, which like drastically lowers their inputs. So the same thing can be done in the vertical farming setting.
Yeah, I would say there are solutions out there, and these are some good examples, but we also have to be critical of our own industry here that we're trying to create. Some of the challenges that we faced with the urban farm in The Hague is, for example, CO2 stripping from our fish that we wanted to use up into the greenhouse, but there's not a practical and an affordable solution to actually compressing that CO2 gas to a point where it's useful for us to use in the greenhouse. So we're losing that just now. We're also losing a lot of our CO2 from the boiler system that we use because of the same problem, that we don't have the economy of scale to install a unit that will be able to compress that gas and bring it into the greenhouse. So we're trying to address these issues, but it costs time and it costs a lot of money, and essentially what we need is an economy of scale where there are enough of these farms, systems, actually communities that you're building are the best solution, because then you really have a scale across multiple places that you can address all of these issues on a more standardized scale.
All right, next question.
Hello, thank you very much for your inspirational talks. A question to Mark regarding plant protection, because I assume you can't feed chemicals to the tilapia, and also you must have a lot of restrictions from the municipality side on what you can and you cannot use on the farm. So would you rather choose more, let's say, pest-resistant species when you plant, or do you use some, I don't know, resistance or bioproducts? That's quite an interesting part of your business model. And congrats on what you're doing. I think it's really great.
Thanks. I've just seen you now. I was looking for you. Yeah, we don't use any pesticides or herbicides on the plants because that would kill our fish. And likewise, we don't use any antibiotics within the fish system. What we do on the plant side is work with our partners, with Koppert Biological Control and with Rijkswaan, to have a combination of resistant varieties and a biological control system. So biological control with insects is nothing new, actually. It's pretty well established in horticulture. And we're just taking that knowledge and using it to optimize our own system. So you just have to work with the experts on that and consultants very closely, and we monitor very closely how our plants are doing. Maybe an insight or an innovation that we have used is in the nutrient film technique that we're using. It has a multi-layer system. So that allows for a cascading waterfall of flow of water, as opposed to having a standard steady flow of river, and that helps our root health in the plants. So there are some small innovations that we're adding to the process as well to try and safeguard against disease and pathogens.
All right. I have a question for the insect and the mushroom people, and also actually for ReGen villages, because maybe you guys can bring a solution to it. But I studied bioengineering, horticulture production. I basically studied how to grow plants, and the only way I came into contact with insects and mushrooms was how to kill them. And it's not a good thing. And so my question to you guys is, how did you learn about growing of insects and mushrooms? Because I don't know if there is any master or any bachelor or academic bachelor to do it. So.
Well, for me, it started with food security in Edinburgh during my master's, basically. So that's where the interest came from. And then I sort of couldn't find anywhere to buy insects, so I started my own little company. So that's how I grew into it. But what I do see is that, and sort of a young panel as well here, but there's so much interest from young people that like insect farming, mushroom farming, aquaponics is becoming cool and something hip. And I think Has, which is also a partner, I think, started a completely new program focused solely on insect farming. We got Wageningen, so there's a lot happening actually, and that's quite kind of new. Maybe the 1 less or 2 years. There's more, more programs available. So, but we see a lot of interest. A lot of young people wanna do something in this. Yeah.
Yes, I also want to add that with ReGen villages, we do understand that there are many people that do not have the skills or don't want to learn the skills to grow insects or mushrooms. So what we are facilitating is a management conserve team that is going to be responsible for generating the food. So the people that are actually living in the community just get their food served right at their doorstep. But if they want to contribute, that will be deducted from their monthly fee of making the services available. So that's how we are trying to cope with like the unskilled people that do want to live in organic farming conditions.
Mushrooms. Last week we were in mushroom days in Center Togenbosch, and I asked a lot of the guys, where did you learn mushroom farming? There was a school in the Netherlands, but it stopped. Or am I right, Kasper? Or,
Well, traditionally, I would say traditionally, it has always been a small sector. And traditionally, it's always been focused on eating mushrooms. But it's shifting. As many other things, it's shifting. Like I can see it change. I don't know, like the old guys here know if it's always been shifting, but I have the idea that the last 5 to 10 years, it's really starting to shift. Like the people are getting more and more interested into new things, especially in the mushroom industry. So where did I learn it? I learned it from the cradle because my parents didn't do anything but it. So for me, it was easy. I'm half a mushroom myself, but above ground. But I really see new applications, like this. What he mentioned with Stamets is 6 ways to save the world. It's a bit exaggerated, perhaps, but the idea is good. Like the essence of what he says is right. Like there are many ways mushrooms can contribute to what we are and what we do, and I see these things emerge now. Like we're making mushroom filters, just filtering water. Applications in the bioremediation are coming up real fast. Many other things are coming up. So in this industry, things are really changing. And so it's a good time for it.
So mushroom production, not only for food production, but also for cleaning the water in the cities, for...
Most definitely.
All right.
There's a lot of new applications coming up.
All right, thanks. So, next question from the public.
Yes, hi, I'm Eric from Reformers. We're a small French company. We have a circular farm project, and we also do zip grow in Europe. I have a question about finance, because we see that a lot of these projects are very capital intensive, and we still do farming, so small profits. So the question is, how do you raise funds for projects like Urban Farmers or ReGen? Do you have to go to the US where they like risk more to get funding for these projects?
If I understand correctly, you're talking about funding? Funding, okay. Yeah, that's a very important question because these plans do stand or fall with our finance capability. So that's why we are posing Region Villages as a for-profit business. So it has return on investment, and that's how we are hoping to convince to raise capital. We're tapping into foreign wealth funds. We are at this moment talking to billion-dollar funds that are interested in looking to this concept because they see the scalability. But it's certainly an issue to get the first one in and to make sure, also with regards to the timing, because there's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done, but at the same time, we already are breaking ground this summer. So it's all about timing, it's all about finding the right connections of financing and just go big.
Yeah, I think we're really early on in this from our side too. It took us 2 years to get the finance together for our farm in The Hague, and all the time we were still progressing on as if we knew we were going to build it. So at the same time I was doing the planning permission, we were still doing investor pitches and trying to bring together the last of the finance. My advice would be, at this stage, you need to have at least one very understanding, sympathetic investor who's there for the impact and there for the long term and takes the journey with you. And they are one of the key stakeholders within our organization, basically, because that gives us access to new networks, and it gives us a little bit of weight when we go into a meeting and we talk about these returns that we're talking about, return on investment. Then we can say, well, we have credibility because we already have one person on board. The advantage we have now is that we've built the farm. and that we can operate this farm and we can show real numbers, real market numbers coming out of The Hague. And so with that weapon, it's going to be much easier to scale in the future because we'll have a proven business case. And I think it'll be the same with ReGen.
We need pioneers. We need pioneers for investors to show what's possible. All right, it's time for lunch. I think we got inspired very much by everybody here. And I think it's a lot to think about, a lot to talk about. If you still have questions, the speakers are still around. And I know there's other... Okay, and we have to be back at 2 to the start of the workshop. Have a great lunch, and big applause for the speakers and the panels. Thanks, guys. Awesome.